The mage before Lin repeatedly uttered the same plea, "Kill me, kill me." Following this, the mage summoned a staff. His hands seemed to be trembling uncontrollably. Lin looked confused, unsure what was going on. Yet he proceeded to use a detection spell. To his surprise, the mage in front of him was incredibly powerful. A level 39 elemental archmage with all 4 attributes at 10,000. Not only that, its spirit attributes, which astonishingly reached 40,000. The archmage also possessed 5 unique skills and a special trait that significantly enhanced its health points. As Lin marveled at these incredible stats, the archmage's voice echoed once more, followed by a buzzing sound from the staff. At that very moment, the entire dungeon vibrated momentarily. The mage then shouted,
"If you cannot kill me, I will kill you."
Before Lin could react, the elemental archmage fired a dragon made of fire from his staff, heading straight for Lin. Without much time to think, he immediately fortified his skeletal armor, thinking to himself that this archmage must have been the real end boss in this dungeon. But he had one question: why is the end boss a human mage? However, he didn't have much time to ponder. Even with his skeletal armor, he didn't think he could withstand a spell with 40,000 spirit points. A skeletal warrior suddenly appeared in front of Lin, attempting to block the attack, but was instantly engulfed by the flames. Almost instantly, Lin received a system notification that a skeletal warrior had been killed. Lin hastily retreated, feeling a bit surprised. Nonetheless, this was the final boss with the most extreme attributes he had encountered so far. The first skill alone was formidable. How powerful then were the remaining 4? Regardless, he had no choice but to face the challenge head-on. He moved to a relatively safer location and summoned the rest of his skeleton army. The skeletal warriors charged forward, their great swords raised high. Just as their blades were about to strike the archmage, a blue light flashed, and a blue protective shield appeared around the final boss. This was his second skill, a magic shield. The attacks from several skeletal warriors hit the shield, but it was as if they were striking water. Their swords were repelled backward, however. Their attacks seemed to have no effect. Lin frowned. Even the rampage strikes of the skeletal warriors were unable to breach the magic shield. This caused him to ponder. With 40,000 spirit points, the magic shield seemed even stronger than the Knight Profession's limitless defense skill. Digging into his kit, Lin had only one skill that could ignore the magic shield. He raised his hand, a blue flame burning in his palm. This was no other than Soul Flame, and within seconds, the flame was sent flying towards the elemental archmage. Clearly, the archmage had not anticipated any skill breaking through his magic shield, showing a surprised expression as the flame bypassed his defenses, causing him visible pain and intense trembling, yet he didn't scream out loud. Suddenly, the archmage sneered, repeating, "Kill me," telling Lin that killing him was the only way to get answers. Not wasting this precious opportunity, as the Soul Flame landed on the archmage, Lin ordered all skeletal warriors to retreat, and then the skeletal mages launched their assault. Their attacks, hundreds of elemental spells of 4 different types, overwhelmed the already weakened magic shield. The shield twisted and deformed, eventually shattering. Seizing the moment, hundreds of skeletal warriors leaped towards the archmage from below, but then something unexpected happened. Suddenly, a purple light struck one of the skeletal mages, which then caused it not only to freeze in place, but also to stop it from channeling its spells. Turned out, the archmage had used a skill specifically countering mages, a silencing type crowd control spell. The archmage in the sky incessantly cast the same spells, his staff emitting continuous light, silencing the skeletal mages one after another. Meanwhile, as hundreds of skeletal warriors approached him, a gust of wind swept through, freezing them in the air with chains made out of wind materializing around them. This was another of the archmage's skills, wind shackles. Everything happened so quickly. Before Lin could react, all the skeletal warriors and mages were immobilized, leaving Lin at a loss. He frantically thought about his options. Summon the spirit general, but the general's ability could only remove effects like stuns, not silence or wind shackles. Summon the guardian? That wouldn't work either. The guardian won't be able to hit the target. Lin realized he had no choice but to rely on himself, facing the final boss alone for the first time. With a scythe that probably won't even land a scratch on the boss, perhaps only able to tickle him, and only a few skills at his disposal with no corpses nearby, Soul Flame was his only option. Thankfully, Soul Flame could bypass the magic shield. Lin repeatedly used Soul Flame while spamming, the flame causing visible pain to the boss in the sky. Suddenly, enduring the pain, the archmage raised his staff and began casting a spell, creating a star pattern underneath his foot, and then unleashing his ultimate skill, Meteor Fall. This Meteor Fall was infinitely more powerful than the one used by the mage in that party of 5 who ambushed him earlier. The sky turned red as countless flaming meteors rained down. With a powerful and high-level mage's AoE skill like this, the chance of escaping is close to none. Lin didn't even bother trying to dodge. Instead, he took several potions from his backpack. First, he strengthened his skeletal armor a couple of times, almost as if he was applying Viagra to his skeletal armor. The skeletal armor expanded several times, bigger than ever. Waiting as the meteor landed on him, the enhanced skeletal armor cracked, but luckily, it didn't break on impact. Seeing that the attack didn't harm him, the boss realized there was a skill protecting Lin, and immediately used a silencing skill on him. However, the boss didn't know that Lin's skeletal armor was immune to all crowd control and negative effects. As powerful as this ability was, the accuracy fell short. Only a few meteors managed to hit. Each meteor that fell was blocked by the skeletal armor, rapidly depleting Lin's mana. He continuously consumed recovery potions, as meteors kept falling on him. Just like a turn-based game, the both of them exchanged blows one after another, a series of explosions of flame bursting before his eyes. Undeterred, he kept spamming the 2 spells. It was clearly a war of attrition that began between them, a test of who could last the longest. After several minutes, the meteor shower in the sky finally ceased, and the boss reached his limit, emitting a painful scream. As the smoke and dust cleared, Lin stood unscathed, although his skeletal armor showed numerous cracks. Despite this, he was rock solid. The archmage's body slowly descended from the sky. What followed was a vast amount of blue energy escaping from his body, which caused his body to become more transparent every second. At his final moment, he let go, and his staff fell from the sky. Lin couldn't discern from the final expression, or if the archmage still held any consciousness, but he might have seen a faint smile. Either way, it no longer mattered. The system announced the defeat of the level 39 elemental archmage, awarding 3.9 million experience. Lin first recalled his skeletons to the summoning space, then inspected the loots. There were 4 items in total: a damaged divine flame staff, a time and space crystal, a divine talent stone, and a brilliant intermediate skill scroll. Even with his usual composure, Lin was taken aback by his loot. As he read through each item's description, his astonishment grew. The damaged divine flame staff was actually a legendary weapon, unfortunately, in its current state. It's broken. Perhaps there was a chance to repair it. Lin held the staff while walking towards the other items. Turned out that the time and space crystal could be crafted into a teleportation stone, but the destination was unknown. The divine talent stone, also a legendary item, guaranteed 100% talent awakening during the 3rd class transfer. However, Lin hadn't even undergone his 2nd class transfer, yet he had stumbled upon such a valuable item. As for the final loot, the brilliant intermediate skill scroll had 100% of obtaining a random skill. He found it hard to grasp how a level 39 boss could drop a legendary weapon in such items. Compared to the first 3 items, Lin felt the brilliant intermediate skill scroll was the least valuable, even though it would cost tens of millions to buy from the exchange. Shortly after, perhaps seeing the meteor fall earlier and hearing the commotion, Yi rushed over, panting and looking somewhat anxious. Seeing Lin safe and sound, she breathed a sigh of relief, but soon her face turned into utter shock when she pointed at the staff, recognizing the divine flame staff. She was both confused and excited. Her question was why this legendary staff appeared in this dungeon. However, Lin noticed that she specifically mentioned the broken divine flame staff, and not the other items, clearly valuing it the most. Prompted by this, Lin asked her if she knew this staff. Holding the staff, which looked like it could shatter at any moment, especially where a magic crystal should have been set at the top but was now empty. Lin handed over the staff to Yi to allow her to examine it closely. She excitedly shared that it was exactly as she had read in the archives, and her grandfather had also mentioned this weapon. The divine flame staff was once the exclusive weapon of a divine level fire mage, Shu Yan, the divine mage. As history records stated, after a great battle, Shu Yan, along with the divine flame staff, disappeared, and no one knew his whereabouts. Suddenly, the staff began to glow, becoming incredibly hot. The entire staff turned scorching hot, causing her to instinctively drop it with a cry of surprise. The staff hovered in midair, casting brilliant light, and shortly after, a figure emerged. On closer look, this figure bore a striking resemblance to the previous archmage, but appeared less ferocious and somewhat aged. Lin, anticipating danger, immediately reinforced the skeletal armor on both himself and Yi, pulling her behind him while conjuring soul flame in his hand. To their surprise, the figure spoke. With a deep voice, he urged Lin not to be alarmed. Turned out his identity was Shu Yan, the divine level fire mage. However, despite his past, he was now merely a remnant soul. Yi peeked from behind Lin, her surprise evident at recognizing the legendary mage. Seeing the young girl recognizing him, he curiously asked how she knew of him. As it turned out, Yi had seen his portrait in a museum and heard of his story from her grandfather. Lin had also heard about this historical figure, mentioned in history textbooks. Both then bowed to pay their respect. Shu Yan gestured dismissively, pleased yet wistful, commenting on how gratifying it was that people still remembered him after so many years. He explained his existence tied to the divine flame staff and the power of the dungeon, which had sustained him until now. However, he mentioned his time was running short after expending too much energy. He implored them to listen carefully to what he had to say. As they listened intently, Shu Yan revealed that a temporal rift had appeared on the third battlefield, connecting the human world to the abyssal world. The elemental demon lord, leading millions of demons, launched a massive invasion. This sudden invasion caught them off guard, leaving them no choice. Shu Yan led the first mage legion to confront them. In the end, they together unleashed a forbidden spell, annihilating the demon lord and his army. However, he looked saddened. The story reminding the duo the scene witnessed upon entering the dungeon was likely the final part of that war. Shu Yan slowly lifted a stone, a time and space crystal he had obtained during that great battle. The crystal contained coordinates within the abyss. If crafted into a teleportation stone by an alchemist, it could facilitate direct travel to the abyss. Lin was surprised but understood this essentially acted as a key to launch a counterattack into the abyss, not through the boundary's entrance, but directly into its heart of the abyss. Lin thought Shu Yan intended for him to hand over the crystal to the Empire's higher echelons, but Shu Yan shook his head. As it turned out, besides the time and space crystal, there was also the divine talent stone. Both were soulbound and usable only by Lin, effectively a worthless rock to anyone else other than him. Switching the topic, Shu Yan smiled and inquired if Lin had awakened a talent. Lin nodded since it was unnecessary to hide it. Shu Yan got his answer and didn't pry into the specific talent, but expressed high regard for Lin's abilities based on the previous battle. He was pleased, advising Lin to awaken another talent upon his second class transfer at level 40. He knew this would be challenging, but still, he urged Lin to try his best. Doing so, by his third class transfer at level 70, he could use the divine talent stone to awaken a third talent. With the enhancement of 3 talents, Lin's strength would reach an astonishing level. Shu Yan's eyes filled with hope for the future as he reminisced about history's first triple-talented top-tier powerhouse, wishing Lin to be the second. Lin could sense he was held in high regard. Nonetheless, he committed to doing his best. Satisfied, Shu Yan nodded, but Lin was puzzled as to why he was chosen, given the dungeon had existed for a long time, and many had cleared it in the past. Shu Yan, with the pride of a divine-level mage, disdainfully and even angrily stated that he deemed those others unworthy, considering it a waste to give the items to them. He'd rather let these treasures rot here than hand them over to useless trash. Oof, that's some harsh words. Anyway, his tone shifted as he reminisced about a talented young girl who had caught his attention, regretting that, unlike Lin, she was part of a team at the time. Shu Yan, comparing Lin with the memory of the girl who wielded dual blades, noted a resemblance. Prompted by this, Lin showed a photo of his sister, asking if she was the one. Shu Yan nodded with a hint of regret, acknowledging her talent, but noting she fell just short. Upon learning she was Lin's sister, Shu Yan smiled, sharing that she had reached level 35 a few months ago, leaving Lin relieved and surprised by her rapid progress. I thought his time was running out? Anyway, Shu Yan emphasized that level isn't always crucial. Lin, at only level 27, had managed to solo a level 30 hell level difficulty dungeon, a feat unparalleled in the human race, possibly even beyond the capabilities of top human talents. He remarked on Lin's unique profession and its potential for growth, but pointed out a critical weakness in Lin's skeletons, their susceptibility to crowd control. He suggested that in the future, if he could acquire a skill or talent for cleansing, could mitigate this flaw. Even without him saying, Lin had already recognized this flaw had also reached from his battles. Shu Yan imparted much wisdom and experience, ultimately explaining he chose Lin to obtain the loot. Satisfied, he infused the last bit of his soul into the staff, telling them doing so would make the staff become even stronger if Lin found a way to repair it in the future. Unfortunately, the staff wouldn't provide Lin much use, so he expressing his hope that Lin would find someone worthy of being the new owner of this legendary weapon. This was the divine level mage's final request. Lin and Yi paid their respects once more to the staff, honoring Shu Yan's last wishes. After storing the staff in his inventory, Yi reflected on the sacrifices Shu Yan had made for humanity, to which Lin nodded in agreement. He believed that it was the bloodshed and sacrifices of these heroes that allowed humanity to survive amidst distant threats. He was also convinced that humanity would grow stronger and eventually launch a counterattack into the abyss. Upon exiting the dungeon, Lin and Yi attracted considerable attention. Many were incredulous that just the two of them had cleared the dungeon. Recognizing Lin, some recalled how he also managed to solo the hell level difficulty outpost dungeon on the first battlefield. Among the crowd were people Lin was familiar with, including Xu Xing'an and his squad, surprised to see Lin had soloed another hell level dungeon. The duo walked over and greeted them. After that, Lin quickly suggested to Yi that they should be on their way now, recalling his past experiences of trouble following every time they left the dungeon, eliciting a giggle from her. However, before they could get far, several figures appeared in the sky. Several high-level professionals announced an enemy attack, urging everyone to prepare for battle. Meanwhile, in the distance, a massive portal opened near the boundary, with countless demons, exuding a bloodthirsty aura, slowly emerging.